On this episode of China Uncensored, the Communist Party is putting pressure on U.S. airlines, but it's not going to fly with the White House. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. China's sacred territory is very important to the Chinese Communist Party, especially when the party only has questionable claims to that sacred territory. Take the South China Sea, for example. Indisputable territory of China since ancient times, made even more indisputable by the man-made islands armed with missile launchers. But the Chinese Communist Party can't build missile launchers on everything, probably. That's why the party has other ways to give everyone a friendly reminder about what is and isn't Chinese territory. In April, China's Civil Aviation Administration sent a letter to 36 foreign airlines. It demanded that they stop referring to Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau as countries or regions separate from China. Here's a copy of the actual letter obtained by the Washington Post. Yes, they're not separate countries. Taiwan, of course, has its own democratically elected government, its own military, currency, passport, border control, and pop stars. But as the Communist Party will tell you, Taiwan is just a renegade province of China, not a separate country. Hong Kong and Macau also have separate governments, although legally they are under the authority of the People's Republic of China. So no dispute there. Although since they have their own laws and border control, some people think of them as separate regions. But not for long, because that letter from China's Civil Aviation Administration warned some airlines that if they failed to comply with the friendly request to stop listing these places as separate regions and/or countries, there would be friendly consequences. This is hardly the first time the Chinese Communist Party has pulled this tactic. In January, fashion brands Zara and Delta Airlines had to apologize for listing Taiwan as a country on their websites. Later that month, hotel chain Marriott suffered the same fate. But this time, it's different. The Trump administration won't let the Chinese Communist Party get away with bullying U.S. airlines, because if the Trump administration understands anything, it's bullying. The White House press secretary released this statement, saying President Trump will stand up for Americans resisting efforts by the Chinese Communist Party to impose Chinese political correctness on American companies and citizens. And the statement called the Communist Party's demands Orwellian nonsense. Because if the Trump administration understands anything, it's references to classic 20th century literature. And so the Communist Party responded in a way they know will get President Trump's attention. A Twitter war. This actual tweet from China's State Council Information Office asked, "How would you like it if we listed one of your states as a country? Huh? Huh?" I gather that China's State Council Information Office has never been to Texas, or California, or New Hampshire. Frankly, we'll give away Florida. But seriously, the State Council Information Office makes a great point. It's exactly like a Chinese airline listing Texas as a separate country, if Texas had its own military, passports, currency, and border patrol. And no, Walker Texas Ranger does not count. The U.S. Embassy in China reposted the White House statements about this Orwellian nonsense on their Weibo account. Weibo is China's version of Twitter. But the post was censored by Chinese authorities. Well, censored-ish. They can't take down a post from the U.S. Embassy without causing a diplomatic incident, but they can stop other people from reposting it. And some Chinese netizens were enjoying the show before their own comments got censored. But according to my favorite state-run media, the Global Times, other Chinese netizens were furious that the White House called these tactics Orwellian nonsense. Although some were confused about what Orwellian means. By the way, George Orwell's books are not completely censored in China. You can buy Chinese translations of Animal Farm and 1984, so not understanding references to classic 20th century literature, that's on you, kids. Trump would be so disappointed. Anyway, China's foreign ministry went the route of, this is just the price of doing business in China. So what's the big fuss? Many airlines have already tried to adapt, like British Airways. They used to list Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong under a drop-down menu labeled countries. But earlier this year, they changed their menu to just say from. Now, like I said earlier, Hong Kong and Macau are officially part of China, even though they have their own passports and governments. But Taiwan is a trickier matter. The Communist Party calls Taiwan a province, but Taiwan operates like a completely independent country in every way. Because of this, the Communist Party has vowed to take over Taiwan by force if necessary. In fact, according to this book, the Communist Party has laid out a comprehensive plan to do just that by the year 2020. So it's really awkward when airlines list Taiwan as a country. I think the most accurate solution would be to simply list Taiwan as the province of China that China is going to invade, even though it's definitely already a province of China. In the past, some airlines got around this sticky situation by listing Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan under a country/region menu instead of just country. But according to the letter sent out by China's Civil Aviation Administration, that no longer flies. Nope. Even if it's under a country/region menu, it has to say Taiwan, China, or Taiwan region, China, not Taiwan by itself. What are you thinking? So it's getting harder and harder to please Chinese authorities. And with China expected to be the world's largest air travel market by 2022, a lot of airlines are feeling the pressure. But the good news is, it's not just the US government that's noticed this Orwellian nonsense. Australia is speaking out as well. So what do you think about this Orwellian nonsense? And would you wear a t-shirt that says Orwellian nonsense? Because we've made t-shirts that say Orwellian nonsense. Seriously. Click the link below to buy one of these t-shirts. The US Embassy and the Global Times translated Orwellian nonsense 2 different ways in Chinese. We, of course, went with the Global Times version. And no, the shirts are not made in China, which is why they're more expensive. So, buy an obscurely hilarious t-shirt and leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. Don't go anywhere, because I'm answering questions from fans of this show. This question comes from a member of our 50-cent army on Patreon. Largezo asks, is the PRC aware of your existence? Great question. Of course they are. I'm kind of a big deal. On 2 occasions, I sent faxes to the Chinese consulate in New York trying to arrange an interview with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Why fax? Well, apparently Marx's relentless march of history is a little slow when it comes to the Communist Party's communications system. Oddly enough, the consulate never got back to me, but I'm sure I'll get that interview someday. I do know people are watching China Uncensored in China, and for reasons I can't explain, the ChinaUncensored.tv website is not blocked inside China. So, Xi Jinping, if you're watching, which I know you are, I'm ready for that interview. Want your question answered next time? At the end of each episode on YouTube, I'll answer questions from Patreon supporters. That is, fans who contribute $1 or more per episode. China Uncensored relies on support from our viewers, so this is my thank you to the amazing supporters who make this show possible. Click the orange button to join.